It's time for Mac Geek Gab, and I've got our quick tip of quick tip of the week, because I learned accidentally almost. I went in on my phone to settings, Wi-Fi, and I noticed something I just hadn't observed before, but I'm sure it was there. In the upper right-hand corner is an edit button. This, once it authenticates by checking that your face is your face, shows you a list of all the Wi-Fi networks that it knows about. You can delete them from here with the little minus sign and a red circle. And if it has a password, you can see the passwords and all of that from here too. Something I didn't think was available on the iPhone anymore. More quick tips like this, plus your questions answered today on Mac Geek Gab 1091 for Monday, May 26th, National Paper Airplane Day, and also Memorial Day 2025. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Mac Geek Gab, the show where we share quick tips like that from us and from you. We share cool stuff found from us and from you, and we share questions from you, and sometimes from us, and hopefully answers from us, and sometimes from you, or at least a path down the troubleshooting journey so that we can all learn at least 5 new things every single time we get together. Our sponsors for this episode are OWC's Gemini. Oh, it's actually not the Gemini. It is the 1M2 Express. I've got to update my notes here. That is a killer external bus-powered SSD that we'll talk about in a little bit. And also calderalab.com/MGG, where you can elevate your skincare routine in a way that's actually built for guys. So we'll talk about that in a little bit too. And you can use code MGG at checkout for 20% off your first order there too. So we'll talk more about that. For now, here in Durham, New Hampshire, as usual, I'm Dave Hamilton.
And here in South Dakota, as usual, I'm Adam Christensen.
And here also in New Hampshire, where the Whitecaps are getting up on the bay, Dave, as the nor'easter's coming in. Pilot Pete, good to be with you guys. I wasn't supposed to be here this week. I was supposed to be winging my way west, but the nor'easter said no if you had another guess.
Yeah. Nor'easters, if you don't live in the north and east, nor'easters go in the north and east direction. So Pete wanting to head west, that would not have been so great in a smaller plane or even in a larger plane, but we do it anyway in those. Yeah.
They bring with them crappy weather and turbulence and mountain obscurations. And as I told Dave yesterday, I like to use my instrument rating to get me out of trouble should I get into it, not to get myself into trouble in the first place. So,
yep, I can attest to Pete's ability to fly instruments because that's what we did for the first leg of our trip to Macstock last year. Who knows how we're getting to Macstock this year, but we certainly flew out in what Pete likes to call the goo on the morning we left. It was not the best. It wasn't the worst, but it was also not the best. But regardless of how we choose to get there, we will be at Macstock this year, and on the Saturday of Macstock, which is July 12th, the three of us will do a live Mac Geek Gab, which hopefully we will be able to record and obviously release as that week's episode. That is the plan, and I have no reason to believe it wouldn't work, but either way, we're doing a live one while we're there. So come and join us. And code MacGeekGab50 saves you $50 off your Macstock registration.
I know how I'm getting there.
How are you getting there, Adam?
I'm on a United plane.
Okay. All right. You've made a decision. That's great. Yes. All right.
I have my ticket.
Excellent. Nice. All right. Well, that makes one of us. There you go.
There you go.
Yep.
So, and hey, just because it is show 1091, police code 1091 is pick up subject. I think we ought to pick up the subject of quick tips. Just saying.
I agree with you, because the subject of the Mac Geek Gab giveaway this month at macgeekgab.com/giveaway being an Eero Outdoor 7 goes by so quickly. It's a quick tip in and of itself.
Yes.
You want to take us to the
signed
next
up.
quick tip, Adam?
Yeah, this one's, I think, specifically for me. He says, I didn't want, this is from Joe. Joe says, I didn't want this one to pass unremarked upon, especially given that Stephen Hackett recently discussed this on issue on Connected. Apple has finally unveiled a tool to merge accounts. You can merge accounts. The reason you might want to do this is the same reason I do. There's a surprising number of people out there, myself, Stephen Hackett, John Gruber among them, who ended up collecting a lot of iTunes and App Store purchases under one account while separately using a different account for everything else. My exact situation.
Yeah.
I use one account for iCloud and one account for all my purchases. In Stephen's case, this led to a weird situation where he had issues purchasing extra storage for his iCloud family account. Who knew? So weird.
Wow, this is something we've never heard of before, Adam.
His solution was to add his older account to his iCloud family, presumably in order to protect from shenanigans. Apple says the transferred from accounts can no longer be used for media and purchases after the transfer is complete. Yeah, that's the whole licensing thing. They don't want you flopping back and forth between accounts.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you can go in there, and we'll have, I'm sure, a link to this in the show notes. Apple has an article about this, but it says you can choose to migrate your music apps and other content you purchase from Apple on a secondary Apple account to a primary one. So I see this in my future.
I see this in your future too. I like this. Hopefully this solves this weird problem. I mean, how long have we been talking about this on the show? Almost since
This is our second week at least.
Well, no, but like
before
this came up months ago. Maybe I feel like this kind of keeps coming up because you and I, Adam, have we've shared screenshots. It's like, why are you seeing things differently than I'm seeing? Why is Apple bifurcating this for some people but not others? And now we know. Yeah.
Now we know. Yeah, the reason it came up again was the first time it came up, I was explaining that I just had the problem. It's like I can't purchase the extra storage, and I was just living with it.
Yes.
It came up again recently because I knew I was approaching my 2 gigabyte limit, and that point came, and then it was like I still hadn't solved this, and it's like, well, I don't have any other choice. I'm just going to bite the bullet and get the $29.99 a month plan for 6 terabytes, which is crazy expensive.
That's crazy expensive.
I've been living with that. So now I got to do this so then I can roll that back and have my 2 gigs from my iCloud plus 2 gigs, which is what I want.
That's what you want. Yeah, right. That's what you need. It's not what you want necessarily, Adam.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I'd like the 6 terabytes for $9.99 a month. How about that?
That would be great. Yeah, of course. I will read a section from this article just to kind of give everybody a baseline, because I think that you skipped over this part, right? The quote from the article, which says you can choose to migrate apps, music, and other content you've purchased from Apple on a secondary Apple account to a primary Apple account. The secondary Apple account might be an account that's only used for purchases. You'll need to access to the primary email and phone number and password for both, and neither account should be shared with anyone else. So,
yeah, I didn't go into the full details. I only read the first sentence. So
I just figured I'd share all of that context for anybody listening that's not entirely aware of what the problem is. Now, hopefully that helps. But yes, the link's in the show notes. We're good to go.
I'll report.
And
back
I will
on
add
whether
the comment that you probably want to make sure if you want to do that, why you're doing it, because there are times, and it's coming up and don't get caught, where you want a separate account. Just saying.
Huh.
Oh yeah.
That sounds that's foreboding, or is that foreshadowing, or is it both?
Yes.
Well, I will say I will report back with how it goes when I do it. I probably will have it done before the next episode, I would assume.
Cool.
Very nice.
Cool. Great. Amazing. I can't wait to talk about it. I am assuming you will have success, but also hoping that you have success.
Great.
You want to take us to the next one, Pete?
I can do so. Patrick wrote in. He says, "Hi guys, I use a 512 gig M1 MacBook Air for work, and I keep it fairly lean. Recently, I noticed my storage was down to 10 gigs. Ouch! Even after cleaning up files and running Clean My Mac, the available space kept dropping. Since I often work in terminal, I ran the du command. I think stands for disk usage. That's my wild guess. Sudo du-h-d1." And discovered that my library folder was using 260 gigabytes. Digging deeper, I found the culprit, the Podcasts app. Turns out automatic download was enabled in the app settings. I turned it off and deleted the downloaded audio files from the folder, instantly freeing up 220 gigabytes of space. If you're running low on space and use the Podcasts app, check this folder and don't get caught. Keep up the great work. My comment to that was, Patrick, I hope you didn't delete any of the MGG episodes.
Yeah, Pete, right? We're not supposed to share this tip. That's bad. That's bad. No, it's totally
at least
fine.
Keep our wisdom,
It's the turning off the automatically download thing is the thing we don't want to share. That's the part. Yeah.
That's it.
Wait. Well, last time I checked, I could stream any episode. I don't have to have it downloaded.
That is fair. That's fair. Yeah.
That's what I was going to say. The good news is we're available online. All you need is an internet connection, which I'm guessing you have, or you wouldn't be hearing this.
This command that Pete glossed over quickly, thank you for glossing over it quickly, is in the show notes. So if you want to see that command, it is there. Yeah.
I will add that I use Daisy Disk to accomplish the same thing, but
okay.
I think actually I ran the command though and looked, and it's like, oh, it puts it right there. It tells you down to which folder, whereas Daisy Disk is more a GUI, and you have to click on it and work your way down to that folder.
Yeah. For sure.
So you can see your SpaceHogs. With that command, it's cool.
Yeah, it will take some time to show them to you, and the problem, it's not the prettiest output, but it does give you what you need. So, yep. I did the same thing. I just looked at that folder because now Patrick told us where to look, and I put the name, the formula for the folder. It's home library group containers, some number, and then .groups.apple.com, whatever. It's in the show notes at macgeekgab.com. I looked at that folder and saw that there was 130 gigs worth of stuff on my system. And so I deleted the caches folder from within that. I did not delete the whole folder because there are some settings that are saved there and some other things that don't take up very much space and might actually be needed. But my philosophy on this, and actually, Adam, I'm curious as a developer if you would agree with this, is that anything, when I look in folders like that, anything in a folder named cache or caches, I consider fair game for me. I would quit the app first, but other than that, it is fair game for me to delete if you as the developer have called it cache or caches.
I think that's mostly fair, yeah.
Yeah. I realize I can, there's no guarantees, but yeah, that's my feeling is you're not putting, go ahead.
I was going to say that's why we have backups.
Oh, that's fair. Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Of course, yes. I'm so used to just running roughshod all over my system, but trusting that my backups are there to save me in the event that I do something dumb. Which happens all the time.
Related to that, and kind of in the vein of the podcast audio, another place I would recommend people check for audio files that might be taking up space locally on your Mac is if it's the Books app. If you are an avid purchaser of audio books, especially, those can take up a lot of space, and you'll want to make sure you download them. If you've purchased them, download them, archive them somewhere, save them somewhere, and then you could get rid of downloaded ones, because in theory, you should be able to re-download them. But again, Apple's policy is for purchase content, you're responsible for keeping copies. And, if they lost licensing on a book or something like that, don't assume it's always going to be available forever to re-download.
Yeah.
So make sure you have your own copy of that file. But then once you have your own copy stored safely in a few places, I delete those. And then if I need them again, I can usually download them. And if I never ever get to a point where I can't, I can go back to my archive and grab my copy of it.
That's really smart. Yep. Makes sense. In our Discord chat, Kiwi Graham asks, are caches included in all backups? In general, no, they certainly are not. Backups also make the assumption I've made that something in a folder called cache does not need to be. It is temporary. It is data that can either be refetched or recreated. It is simply there for efficiency, not preservation. So yeah.
It can often depend on what the backup is, what software or thing it is, and also how you've maybe configured it. So, for example, I know that I don't back up anything in my system folders, which is usually where the caches are. And I, for a lot of my backups that would normally back that stuff up, I exclude it because I just presume I can reinstall the system, at any given point. But, you might want I guess your library folder is the other place, your home library folder. And I always back that up. And that usually has caches and settings and stuff like that in it for your user account.
Yep. Cool stuff. Or quick tips, I guess. We're not on to cool stuff, are we?
Not yet.
Cool quick tips?
Yep. Are we ready to move on to the next quick tip from new listener Allison?
I think we are.
I think that's you, Adam.
I think we are, except I know in that I'm vamping because I didn't, apparently I didn't tag that one.
You did not.
For some reason.
Do you want me to read it? You want Pete to read it?
No, here it is. I think this is the when you change a file's name with open.
Yes.
A change of files open with, you have to reapprove it in system settings, privacy, security.
That's right.
So new listener Allison says, a few weeks back, y'all were talking about how it's now kind of hidden how to open apps from unknown, unsigned developers. Instead of being able to force them open with a right click, you have to know to open system settings, privacy, security, then scroll down until you see the message saying the app was blocked, and then choose open anyway. This also now affects how you set default apps for individual files. If you use the Finder's Get Info window to change the open with setting for a single file, like setting one PNG to open in preview, if you have something else like Pixelmator as the default, macOS may treat that app as untrusted and block it, even if it's Apple's own preview app. You'll need to go to the same privacy security section and approve it. Didn't know.
Crazy.
Yeah. So when I read that tip, though, I have that comment, I guess. I have a tip to get around it. And we may have mentioned this once or twice on the show before. Help me out here. SetApp. In SetApp, there is an app called OpenIn. And I would say 90% of my documents, my PNGs, JPEGs, PDFs, all that kind of stuff, when I click on those, they're all set to open in, and then I have chosen a list of files with which I can open it. And so therefore I can choose any one of those apps, rather, a list of apps that I can open it with. And I can choose any one of those, and I can change it on the fly.
Wow, we just lost Pete. His connection just died. But he is right.
That was weird. I just completely lost the bubble. If you guys can hear me, I'll stop talking.
You're back now, and but you were gone for you unceremoniously left.
Wow, that was weird. Everything went black except my light on my desk, so I know it wasn't a power outage. All my monitors went black. I lost audio. That was weird. Okay. Enough of that fun. Yes. Anyway, long story short is you can change individually which file opens with which app by using open-in, and you can set all your files to open in.
I like it. And you can do this with hyperlinks too. Is that right? So that your browser is choosable.
Yes.
It looks like
It works on browsers. It works on data files, image files. Yeah. So I have. In fact, if you go back just a little bit, Dave, I can see it, and I know people are listening, so it doesn't help. But there's a tab there. I mean, if you click on files, that's where you can choose which files to add it by.
Yeah,
that's the tab. So
that's pretty good. I like it.
Yeah.
Fun stuff.
Open-in is so versatile.
Huh. All right, we'll put a link to Open-in, and yes, it's also in Setup. If you are a Setup user, you can get it there. Otherwise, you can get it directly from, I think it's loshadki.app, but the link's in the show notes. So yeah, very cool. All right, we got one more quick tip. You want to take us to it, Pete?
From Drewski. He wrote in.
Wrote in? That checks out.
You leaked on the opener, and I'm roaching in.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on today.
Oh, man. Must be the nor'easter. The low pressure is getting to us, Dave.
I guess.
Bros, I accidentally discovered a useful feature, and if you press and hold on a message thread in messages, in message list, and drag it to the top, the contact icon gets pinned there. This creates a shortcut to that contact so you can quickly access their messages without scrolling and searching. Nested tip, I use this feature to quickly check the location of contacts I share location with. Just tap messages, select the pin contact icon, then tap their icon again on the next screen, and it shows their current location. How have I never known this? This is a classic example of a quick tip that, it's just been part of my workflow all along. Never thought to share it as a quick tip. So thank you, Drewski. And one other side note on that is you're limited to 9.
Yeah. Yep.
So
I always have 9 up there, and I don't tell anyone when they have moved in or out of my pinned messages because there's not supposed to be any interpretation of your importance in my life. It is just the frequency with which we text each other, and that changes and evolves, and it's all good. So that's it. It's my shortcuts list, not my favorites list that I pin there.
There you go.
I think I've never articulated
Lisa, he doesn't mean anything by it.
I've never articulated it that way before, but if I need to again, I will remember that. And that is my, as with everything we share here, it's our gift to each other that we share our tips and we all get to just use them as our own. So it's a wonderful thing we get to do here. And I am thankful for all of you for listening, and I'm thankful for all of our sponsors, which is the next thing that the next thing I want to do is tell you about one of our sponsors. Because if you're like me, and I know if you're listening to this show, you probably are in at least some ways, you've spent years optimizing your Mac, your podcast gear, your workflows. But what about your face? Well, that's where our sponsor, Caldera Lab, comes in. These folks are bringing high-performance, science-backed skincare to guys who don't want a 47-step routine or to steal their partner's products again. Their hero product, The Good, is a clinically tested antioxidant-packed serum with 27 active botanicals. Then there's the base layer, a moisturizer designed to absorb quickly without leaving you shiny. And the eye serum helps reduce puffiness and dark circles because, let's face it, not all of us are getting 8 hours of sleep. Is anybody getting 8 hours of sleep? Man, it just seems like a dream. Maybe I could dream about getting 8 hours of sleep while I get my, 6. What I love about Caldera Lab is that everything is made with clean ingredients, and it's actually designed for men's skin. Fast, effective, and easy to use. No mystery creams, no overcomplicated systems, just great skin without the guesswork. Don't get caught with a flaky forehead and a drawer full of expired moisturizers. Whether you're starting fresh or upgrading your routine, Caldera Lab makes skincare simple and effective. Don't settle for drugstore junk or steal your partner's products. Elevate your routine with skincare made for you. Head to calderalab.com/MGG and use code MGG at checkout for 20% off your first order. Again, Caldera Lab, CALDERALAB.com/MGG, code MGG at checkout for 20% off your first order. And our thanks to Caldera Lab for sponsoring this episode.
All right. That was awesome. All right. I think we should probably move to a quick don't get caught. And as I warned earlier, there may be cases where you want to keep separate Apple ID. Because many years ago, my airline gave us all iPads with which to navigate, but they were fully functional iPads. And all they said, and they've actually been quite good about it. No one's ever been disciplined, to my knowledge, for anything they've done or put on their iPad. That being said, they also said there's no expectation of privacy, and they mean it. That what you are showing to the world in your personal Apple ID could get ugly. And Bill wrote in and gave us, or he didn't write in, he voiced in. So Dave, if you'll roll that beautiful bean footage, we'll hear what Bill has to say about this.
Gentlemen, Bill from Menlo Park here. I have a don't get caught tip, and I should give you a tiny bit of background. I am a retired attorney, and one of my last phases of work before I escaped the profession, I was doing document reviews, and I was supervising other attorneys doing document reviews. Now, of course, documents these days means files. And in the course of those document reviews, I have seen people's tax returns. I've seen emails between spouses who are getting a divorce. I've seen emails between brothers and sisters fighting over who gets the cabin that the parents left them. I've seen emails between employees discussing their sex lives in couched terms, but clear. And I've seen boudoir photos. I've seen lots of this private information. And how is it that I've seen this when I've been working for corporations? Here's how, and this is the warning. You've been warned by your employer, undoubtedly, at least on onboarding or perhaps once a year, that there's no expectation of privacy in any device your company gives you, cell phone, tablet, computer, or any account that you use through them, a firm email, a online storage account. And here's the deal. If you mix up your personal stuff with your work stuff, and then there is a lawsuit, and if you're a large employer, there's lots of lawsuits. And if it touches upon the area where you were working, your computer, your account can be slurped up for review by your own side's attorneys to look for things relevant to the lawsuit. Sometimes, if it's a particular person, they might have been all over a project, and so their whole email is going to get searched. Their whole hard drive is going to get searched. And then if it hits on the right terms, then some attorney is going to look at it from your side. Now, none of the stuff I mentioned has ever been produced to the other side, but it's all stuff that just I've seen. So if you value your privacy, and if it's at all possible, keep those two worlds separate. Good luck.
Really
Bye.
smart. Yeah, through no fault of your own, I think is the key here, right? Like the message I'm getting is this is not, the person whose data is being reviewed by the attorneys is in certainly in the example that Bill provided, not not
necessarily the target of the investigation.
Not the target of the investigation. Thank you. Yes, exactly. It's no fault of your own. You just happen to have worked on a project that someone else is investigating for one reason or another, and you are caught up in that because that was your job, not because you did something with your data that you weren't supposed to. Now, of course, it sounds like some of these people did, but that wasn't the reason they were looking. So interesting. Yeah.
So I think the advice was best given in Ghostbusters 4 decades ago. Don't cross the streams.
Ah, yes.
Keep them separate.
Easier said than done, though.
It is.
I mean,
It is easier said than done.
We've had a couple of lawsuits over the decades that we've run businesses here. And one of them, the first one, in fact, was very much dependent on using email to prove the case, essentially, for lack of a better term. No, in fact, for a generalized term, is the term. Like the email was it. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm thankful that it was back then when everything was in email, because we were the ones that actually filed that suit. So we had the burden of proof. Today it would be like, all right, well, now you got to go get Slack messages and, text messages and all this other stuff. But that's the point, right? Is even with that, it was like, oh, I guess I want to try and filter some of this stuff out. And, I shared some of it with my attorney, and he's like, yeah, it's okay to filter that out. Like that's not relevant to the case. So, but even still, like, it's keeping it separate is super important. Yeah.
And deleting it from your hard drive, there's questions as to whether or not did you know or anything like that. Is the problem is, at least at my company, that stuff all gets slurped up and archived anyway. So you can delete it all day long. They've got it.
Yep.
So
they got device management software. Most corporations that issue devices also have device management software on there, which does all kinds of stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's so they can manage the device, set up security, install things. All that stuff goes the other way. They can make backups. They can do all kinds of things with your device. The other thing I'll tell you, or just say, because like I'm in this situation, I have a work issued laptop, and there's certain things that I want. It's interesting. My company, I have a work issued laptop, but we have to use our personal phones. So my phone is mine. They don't control it. But to that end, like I have to do things like do testing on device testing on a phone for like websites and stuff that I develop. And so one of the things I often need to do is we have development websites that are password protected, and we have passwords for them. And it's really, I don't want to have to, pull up and type a really complex password. So like one feature that I wanted to have available to me, because it's a Mac and I have Apple device, is the continuity, copy paste that works through iCloud. So I wanted my iCloud account on my work computer. But the important thing that I do is I go into, once I turn that on, I go into internet accounts and see all, and I disable everything in there. So it's not syncing my photos. It's not syncing my iCloud files. It's not doing, Find My Mac. It's not syncing my messages. It's not, I turn off all the features that I don't want on my corporate computer. So you can kind of manage some things that way. Now, I don't know if that's the most secure, probably not, but that is one thing that I do when I set up my account, because then I can have my continuity features going through there, but I'm not dumping all my personal notes and messages and contacts and things onto my work computer.
That's interesting. At first, I was thinking, well, if it's just passwords, like you can, and perhaps this is a sort of bonus quick tip, you can have multiple password managers installed and active on all of your Apple devices, your phones and your Macs. So you could have Apple passwords, say, for your personal stuff, and Bitwarden or something else, 1Password or something for your work stuff. But that doesn't get your continuity features. So,
the other thing, Dave, is you have to understand, I work for an e-commerce company and we have compliance rules, and our Bitwarden is on a local server on our local network and not accessible from outside the
of course
company network.
So you can't. So explain to me how that works. So when you are local on the company network, either local or perhaps via a VPN, I don't know. You can sync with the Bitwarden server. But if you are not local nor on the VPN, do you have at least an old copy of that sync data on your phone, or is it not there at all?
It's a good question. I don't know. I haven't tested that. I would imagine I would have a copy at that point.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's interesting. I know I can't access it when I'm not connected to the VPN. Like, So I would say no, because if I'm not connected to the VPN, when I launch Bitwarden, it won't even bring anything up. I have to be on the network connected.
Amazing. And that might be a setting in Bitwarden, right? That they've imposed that you can only access it live, as it were, not cached. So
yep.
Yeah.
So I can put the VPN on my phone and then get in there, if I wanted to, but I don't do that. It's just more convenient. It's just like I'm working at my desk. I'm just testing stuff. So it's like, I don't need access when I'm not at work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Adam, the one word you said in there that was I quickly glossed over, but companies aren't doing this to find a way to get you. There are compliance rules. They have to do this to protect themselves and be in compliance with many laws, state and federal. So
yeah. That's why my first comment was through no fault of your own.
Yeah,
that's the important. That was the takeaway for me from Bill's is like, all right, just because I'm not the one that someone is investigating doesn't mean that my data won't be included in an investigation. And I think that's the takeaway. All right, should we move on to some questions here?
Yeah,
we should.
We have one here from Barry. Barry says, I'm hoping you can help me out with an issue I'm having with the screensaver on Apple TV. I have a large 4K TV, which I love to view my photos on. Typically, I have it running most days in screensaver mode, and I love seeing the selection of my photos as I walk in and out of the lounge. The problem is that my photo library, which is the source of the screensaver pictures, is getting up to about 2,000 pictures, all downsized to 4K dimensions and compressed with JPEG. Turns out that the Apple TV screensaver function can only cope with about 50 or so photos, and it does not cycle through the entire library. In addition, each time the screensaver is triggered, it seems to reuse the same approximately 50 photo collection. Are you aware of any way to enable the Apple TV to work with large picture libraries? I have even tried using the slideshow feature in Photos, but that seems to struggle and repeat pictures and not progress normally through the large library, even though the shuffle photos and repeat pictures are turned off.
So I noticed the same thing too. I think if either of you know about it, I was not able to find anything that allowed the Apple TV to cache more than about 50 photos in its screensaver. And I looked, but I couldn't find it. I do know that I have in years past used different libraries, so I can shift from aviation to kids photos and that sort of thing. So that's one option.
Different libraries or different?
Yeah, I'm sorry, different
albums.
Albums. Thank you. Yeah,
okay,
albums. So you go into settings and but you have to go into Apple TV settings and tell Screensaver to look at a different album.
Right. Okay.
My solution to that was I actually like to leave this on in the house frequently when I'm not watching TV. I'll put this on. Is I created a photos library on my Plex server. So we have the steps in. I gave him in the response, and I guess the way to put there are a lot of steps. There's like 9 or 10 steps.
Post them in Discord.
Notes.
Post them in Discord.
Oh, Discord. There we go. I'll post it in Discord. That's what we'll do. But basically, I have a Mac Mini that I keep on all the time in my basement. It's my Plex Media server. It's my channels server. And so I went there. I put that in Plex. And then my photos library, I actually have on the NAS. Do not, never, ever, ever, not even never access your photos library on your NAS. It's a backup copy only.
Right.
But I let Plex use it as a read only. It goes in there and finds it and pulls out. And in those steps, it tells you how to find where those photos are. But it will go through all of your photos. It will look at every last one of them. So using the photos library in Plex. And then so when you want to go to Screensaver, just turn Plex on, go to photos and hit play.
Oh, I see. So there's no, it's
not a screensaver. It's you're playing something in Plex. So it again, it's deliberate. It's not like, okay, I'm done with this, and then it goes to screensaver.
Yeah.
So
I wonder if there's a third-party screensaver
that would. I never considered looking at that. Yeah.
I have to admit, I don't even know if there are third-party screensavers for Apple TV. I know, like on our NVIDIA Shield, when we started using that as kind of our primary device for a little while, because it's so much better for playing back Plex specifically, we missed seeing the Apple Aerial screensavers. And so on that, I found several third-party screensavers that pull from the Apple Aerial library. And actually, I liked the way they did it better because I was able to pick the one that I wanted as opposed to just getting Apple. So I don't know if there's any third-party screensavers on Apple TV. I've never looked. Maybe there are. Yeah. Feedback at MacGeekGab.com. Tell us about your favorites.
Hold on, where? Feedback at MacGeekGab.com?
I think he said feedback at MacGeekGab.com, and I might need to use that, but I don't have to because I have a little bit of feedback for you guys on this one too.
Okay.
Two things. One, and I just learned about this pre-show, a little tip. Apparently, because I would have suggested the idea of just setting up multiple, photo libraries with 50 photos and then just switching between them occasionally, right? And
sure.
Pete pointed out that, switching's not exactly that easy. Apparently, it kind of is if you have the Apple TV 4K second generation or later. So people may know that you can activate the screensaver manually by doing either of these two things. On the Apple TV home screen, you navigate to the topmost icon in the row and press the back or menu button. And in an app, you can press the back or menu button until the screensaver activates. Or, and this is where the other tip comes in, while the screensaver is active, you can switch to another screensaver category, again on the Apple TV 4K second generation or later only, by swiping up or pressing up on the click pad or touch surface and then selecting the category you want to switch to. I didn't know you could do that.
Say that again? So
while the screensaver is
running.
active, so you got, so I would imagine you can have your first album photo screensaver active and it's playing. Now you want to switch to another one. Apparently on the Apple TV 4K second generation or later, you can swipe up or press up on the click pad or touch surface and then select the category you want to switch to. Apparently, there's a category list. I don't think I have I think I have a first generation Apple TV 4K, so I don't know that I can do this, but
amazing. I had no I clearly I'm learning a thing and my brain needs to process this. I love this. Yeah. We had the Aerial screensaver on and now we have the Snoopy screensaver on our TV. Lucas changed it. I'm presuming he did it by knowing how to do it, but every now and then I'm like, oh, wouldn't it be nice to go back to Aerial? Now I know I can go into settings and make those changes, but now that I know that I can do it without having to go to settings, I like that. That's good. I guess I'll share my favorite quick tip for the Aerial screensaver, which is if you just lightly touch, not press, not click, but lightly touch or tap the swipe button in the middle of the Apple TV of the D-pad there. If you lightly tap that while the Aerial screensaver's going, it will show you the location of that video. So
I love that. And you gave away my other cool stuff found that I was going to interject here. The Snoopy screensavers
it's awesome.
Are amazing. Amazing. Fun. The amount of variety in there, like every time I look up, it's doing something completely different. I don't know how many like little animations or scenes or whatever are there, but it seems to be endless. So if you're looking for something incredibly entertaining and just fun, they are so well done. I love them. And they came in 18.2. So you need tvOS 18.2, which I think came out in December of
it's a recent thing. That's why Lucas did that. Okay, and you are right. Those Snoopy screensavers, they are. I can watch them endlessly. Since we're in the episode of Foreboding and Foreshadowing, I have a new cool stuff found that I'm going to talk about in a little bit that I can also. Currently, anyway, stand and watch endlessly, and it's very meditative.
Is it a time
suck? It has become a time suck. Something that shouldn't be. Something that's supposed to automate a portion of my life has now become a major time suck in the most wonderful way. I do want to share that many of you, thank you, shared that I in a recent episode, I think it was last week's, if not the one before, I casually mentioned that Hazel no longer has App Sweep, the feature that would offer to delete settings files for apps that you had deleted. So you delete an
and
app.
I should have said, Dave, are you sure about that?
I think you did, to be fair.
Oh, okay.
I think you did.
Maybe I did. Okay.
Yeah, I think you did. And I said, yeah, I think it was removed in this one. And many of you wrote in and said, no, it's still there. I had a text exchange with new listener Allison about this because she was one of the ones who pointed this out to me. And I said, oh, look at that. It's there. I said, I wonder why it's not working for me. Because it hadn't been. And she says, now that you mention it, it's not working for me either. And then a day later, she beat me to the punch, but we both had it working for ourselves. So I wonder if there was something in the way I upgraded, and clearly Allison the same way, that deactivated that feature and required a visit to the settings page. I didn't toggle anything on the settings page. I just went to it, saw that it was still active and thought, oh, okay, and then left. I wonder if visiting that page awakened the engine in the right way, because now it's working great for me on all my Macs where I have visited the settings page, but it definitely was not before. So woohoo, it's still there, and that's a good thing. Another good thing, of course, is, as always, our sponsor. So take a trip with me and let's talk about our next sponsor. Because, well, it's time to talk about speed. No, not bandwidth, storage. The new OWC Express 1M2 is a pocket-sized, bus-powered Thunderbolt SSD enclosure that's faster than a caffeinated chipmunk on a fiber connection. I just wish I could get those caffeinated chipmunks off of my fiber connection, but that's a different problem. We're talking up to 3,151 megabytes per second of real-world performance. That means massive file transfers, 4K video editing, game libraries, backups, you name it, all flying by without a hiccup. And you can either get it with an OWC SSD pre-installed, or you can bring your own NVMe M.2 2230, 2242, or 2280 drive. In my mind, that's flexibility done right. This thing's built from aircraft-grade aluminum. It's totally fanless, so it stays cool and silent, and it also looks cool. Just like a well-behaved Mac in a library. You can toss it in your bag, you can use it anywhere, and it won't blink. It even comes with a USB-C cable and a screwdriver, because OWC thought of everything, like they always do. Don't get caught waiting on slow transfers, folks, or waiting on underpowered drives. Go get the Express 1M2 from OWC. This is the external storage solution your setup deserves. And you can check it out now at macsales.com, or we'll have a link directly to it from the show notes at macgeekgab.com, or the ones in your email. You'll wonder how you ever lived without it. And our thanks to the folks at OWC for sponsoring this episode. And while I've got you here, let's answer the question, why? Why is the internet like that? Because that's the question that the folks at Neverpost try to answer in each episode of their podcast. Why is there something called influencer voice? What's the deal with the TikTok shop? What is posting disease? And do you have it? Do I have it? Why can it be so scary and yet feel so great to block someone on social media? The team Neverpost wonders why the internet, and the world because of the internet, is the way that it is. They talk to artists, lawyers, linguists, content creators, sociologists, historians, and more about our current tech and media moment. Neverpost, a podcast for and about the internet, produced by Charts and Leisure, published by Radiotopia, episodes every other week at neverpo.st, so neverpo.st, and wherever you find your podcasts. Our thanks to the folks at Neverpost for doing this swap with us. All right, let's. I'm eager to get to cool stuff found, and then maybe we'll go back to questions. So
let's do it.
And plus, we kind of already brought ourselves here, so
Well, there's that. And then, so I guess the original RG writes in because there's RG3, a place for Washington football team. Well, used to. But now the original RG writes in. He says, "Hi, all. There is a simple, cheap, and very widely available solution for delaying the turn on of equipment after a power outage. Used worldwide to protect refrigerators and other equipment, compressor-based refrigerators must have a start delay in case of a very short power cut to restart them when the compressor is still at working pressure. I'm sure that many people in rural USA use these protectors for their fridges. They're available from eBay, Amazon, and many other places from about $10. What the listener with the 3 UPS needs is only 2 different delays and 1 UPS Direct Connect with a 0 delay. Most of these devices will have a fixed 3-minute delay, but there is one I found on Amazon with a variable time delay for $20. They're widely used in other countries and regions where there are frequent switching and power cuts and low voltage brownouts that I didn't bother to reply earlier as I thought they would be well known."
I had no idea these things existed, Pete. So I am super glad both RJ and Rob both wrote in with suggestions for different versions of these. So we'll put both of them up there. But yeah, it's a pass-through device that just delays the power start. And yeah.
Again, I came up with the mousetrap version where you get to go into your box and wire it. And
No. I really wish. This is what I love about doing the show. I mean, I wish.
Right.
I wish we didn't have to revisit this topic for 3 weeks, and I hope that this is the last. This seems to be the solution for this. In fact, I'm thinking of putting these on several of my UPSs because we get this. Even my UPSs, especially the Amazon Basics ones, folks, don't buy them. But Amazon's now going to get $20 more from me because the problem with those is when the power flickers a few times in a short period of time,
they go stupid, right?
They just go stupid and turn off. And it's like your whole freaking job is to not do that again. But that's what it does. And so I'm going to put one of these in line on it so that when the power starts to do that, it just goes off for 3 minutes. The UPS has enough juice to run the system for 3 minutes. So it's okay. Like, yep.
What are the odds? Go figure.
Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah. So I wish I had known about these for a variety of reasons, including shortcutting this whole conversation. But you know, RG's comment is sort of the epitome of like quick tips, right? It's like, well, I just assumed everybody knew. It's like, yeah, it turns out no. It turns out not. Yeah. So yeah, interesting little devices, and I'm definitely gonna get something in this category. So thanks to RJ and Rob for sharing about this with us. So. Guys, I got a new device. I got a new toy.
Your new time suck?
It is kind of. I mean, it shouldn't be. It is. It is something. Eufy, the folks at Eufy/Anchor sent me one of their new robot lawnmowers, the Eufy E15, and it is this thing. I can't believe I've never gone down this path before. Now, I should start by saying that we, for a decade plus, maybe more than a decade, more than 2 decades, in fact, we've always just paid somebody to mow our lawn. So this doesn't change anything about my quality of life. This is a solved problem for me in that I don't have to be the one to mow the lawn. However, I love this thing, and it would pay for itself. The cost on this, there's Eufy has 2 lawnmowers. One is the E15, one is the E18. On their website, it was not clear what the difference was between the 2 of them, except that it sort of alluded to the fact that the E18 was built for slightly larger lawns, but they both said 800 square meters on the website of lawn that it could map and cover. I asked the PR rep, what's the difference? It's for slightly larger lawns. Nobody could articulate for me what the actual difference was. And
the name's different. That's it.
I'm like, there's got to be something different about these. I finally found in an FAQ that the E18 the FAQ says it will do up to 1,200 square meters of lawn, so 50% more. The size of the mower is the same. The speed of the mower is the same. So I just assume it has more RAM to hold the map. And I have about, I would say about 1,000 square meters of lawn. They did not have an E18 to send me when this finally happened. So I have an E15. And it went up to that. It does most of it. I did hear it the other day when it went to like map my mailbox area. It was like, I've hit the limit of my mapping capability. I was like, dang it, I can't do my mailbox. This sucks.
Weed whacker out.
Yeah, exactly. So I suppose that's the difference. The pricing on these is the E15, the smaller one that I have, is $17.99, but there's a $200 Amazon coupon right now, so it brings it down to $15.99, so $1,600. And then the E18 is $19.99, so $2,000. For my yard, that would pay for itself in 2 years. We pay about $900 a year in mowing fees, so that's a pretty short return on investment. Now let's talk about what this thing does. It took from the moment that I in the house cut open the packing box to the time when it began moving and starting its mapping process was less than 30 minutes. And that included me, having to extract things from the boxes and all of that. The thing that took the longest, and by longest, I mean 5 minutes, was the base station for it actually screws into your grass. There's like 8 big, like almost tent stake style screws, just so that it doesn't move when this thing goes in and out. It's fairly lightweight. You can easily lift the mower with one hand. In fact, it has a handle to do that. It's fairly small. The first thing it did was mapping. It's clear that what Anchor/Eufy have learned from having all these robot vacuums in your homes, in our homes, has carried over to this mower. In fact, the mower did an even more exhaustive job of mapping, and I kind of get it. It wants to know what it's going to run into before it runs into it, because what mapping was it essentially mowed my lawn without the blades running, and identified problem areas. I then went in and kind of drew some barriers where there were none, like they call them virtual barriers or something, where you say, okay, here's where the line is between the lawn and the woods, for example, so that it's not trying to go into the woods and all of that. It uses cameras primarily for everything. It does have GPS in it, which is also used in some clever theft prevention. And it will map a section of yard that is all grass. When it sees not grass, it treats that as a barrier, which makes sense. But if you're like me and you have multiple sections of yard that are not all just connected by grass, it also has a solution for that. Once you map one section, you tell it, okay, I want to teach you a pathway to get from one to the other. And for example, I had one pathway that goes across I decided the safest path for it in terms of not running into like stuff that we left out there was to go right along the edge of our patio. And so you drive it with a joystick, you put it into the mode where it's like learning. And I drove it with a sort of joystick thing on my phone in the app from one section to the other. And now I watch it all the time. It takes that little path that I taught it pretty much to the letter and goes between sections. It can mow for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours, the way I have it set up on one battery charge. And if it's not finished, it'll go back and charge its battery, which takes maybe an hour, and then heads back on out and trucks along and mows the lawn. The scheduling, even in the week that I've had it set up, the app has been updated. The firmware has been updated. They've added some things in terms of the way you can schedule zones and more customizations, and it's yeah. Questions, thoughts, guys? I can talk more about this, but yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the area is restricted by the amount of mapping that it can hold. So you can't do a kind of thing where you have it do different areas to get more coverage, right? Because it's like literally physical limit of the map.
At the moment, yeah, there is only one map allowed per base station. So I suppose I could buy another base station and move the mower, manually move the mower to that, and then have that sort of be the home base for a second map, if you will. Now, that to me, that seems like a software, like a potentially solvable by software thing. I have pretty good Wi-Fi coverage throughout my yard, but towards the street, it gets iffy. And it does fine drifting in and out of Wi-Fi coverage while it's doing its thing, because it's using cameras and it kind of knows how to get back to where there's coverage, and then it can, and then it's back in sync. But I think the entirety of the map is loaded into the RAM of the mower. I don't know. But that's what it seems like, and our assumption. And again, I hopefully will be able to talk to somebody at some point who actually knows the answers to these things. The assumption is that the E18 has, 50% more RAM or double the RAM or something than the E15. So
yeah. The other big concern I have with these things is I've thought about them for the same reason. I don't like mowing my lawn, and I recently hired somebody, and it's not cheap. I think I'd be able to pay for one of these things even faster than you. I want your lawn guy, Dave, because
I don't feel driving that far
than my guy.
my lawn guy, who ironically I saw this morning. We had texted him. Lisa had texted him, and we've known him. He actually built our patio for us. He does a bunch of stuff for us. We had texted him and said, "Hey, man, we're testing out a new robot mower, so hold off on starting to do our lawn for this season." And he was like, "Okay, yeah, no problem." And he forgot about that. And at 8:00 this morning, started mowing my lawn. So I had to go out and be like, no. I need to test this thing. Please don't mow. But our lawn guy charges, I think it's $60 or $65 to mow our lawn. So yeah.
Yeah. My lawn's huge.
Yeah. You might need some
third of an acre or something like that. Crazy.
Well, that's the I'm pretty sure the 800 square meters is a half acre and 1,200 is a third of an acre, because I've seen it used interchangeably. So the $2,000 one would probably be candidly, the E18 is the right one for me, given the size of my yard. They just didn't have that to send me, and it also sounds like that would be the right one for you. But yeah, I am going to test others of other robot mowers and make sure we're recommending the right ones. But I'm really impressed with this thing. But go ahead, Adam.
The question is, my concern on these things, because they have the snowblower ones too, which are really cool looking. But these things are out in front of my yard, unattended.
It's the whole idea.
I just feel like someone driving by is like, "Hey, $2,000 lawnmower."
I always wanted one of those,
because they're pretty small too. They're not huge. Just grab that thing, throw it in the back of my SUV. Poof, I'm gone. so
it has a cellular chip in it, and that chip is used for two purposes. One is if you don't have enough coverage, you can pay to turn it on and use it for your lawn. They'll give you 7 days free, and then it costs something nominal after that. That cellular chip, though, is also used in the event of theft, because it knows via its GPS where your yard is. And if it leaves that area, you can set it to A, tell you that it has left and where it is, and optionally B, scream at the top of its lungs the entire time until its battery dies. So, it does the best that it can do in terms of theft. And without the dock, you would whoever stole it from you would have to buy a new dock. But the serial number of the mower, I don't think it would be useful to somebody else. And the parts in it, well, I looked into, because it has, it recommends blade replacement every 240 hours of mowing. So for me and the speed that it mows and the amount of yard that I have, that's probably going to be monthly. Okay, let's assume it might be every 6 weeks, but I figured monthly. Well, it has 3 blades on the bottom of its blade disc. A set of 9 new blades is $35 from Eufy or Amazon. So that's a summer essentially for me. Maybe a little more than that. And then if I were to have to replace the blade disc, and I think the only reason I would do that is if it like hit a rock or something, like some catastrophic thing, which it's extremely good at avoiding, I will point out, because of its cameras. But that's $26. So I was pleasantly surprised that like the user serviceable parts that need to be replaced on this thing are not going to cost me an arm and a leg.
Does it have a removable battery?
Good question. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
Because I would imagine that battery is probably got
expensive,
quite a bit of value.
I would imagine you're right. Yeah. It's really smart. It again, because it uses cameras, low light conditions. It's not interested in mowing. Unlike REM, it will not do your gardening at night. But it knows when sunset and sunrise are. So no matter what you set its schedules for, it will wait until a half hour after sunrise, and it will put itself away a half hour before sunset. And if it doesn't finish, this is where things are a little bit murky for me because I'm only a week in, but it seems like at least some of the time, if it didn't finish what it was doing on Monday and I have it set to mow again on Tuesday, it will resume from where it left off. But sometimes it has done that for me, and sometimes it has not done that for me. And I'm trying to figure out why.
Yeah.
So
I've got some questions too. And actually, Matthew missed the listening. Dave was saying that you only need to pay extra if you need the cellular in it, the subscription. He asked
the subscription.
The
Yeah.
So you don't need a subscription to keep it working.
No.
So first of all, I have a comment, which is that's not nearly as much as a decent rider. So that is not an expensive mower in the big scheme of things. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than $110 Black & Decker, 2 horse or 1 3/4 horse, whatever they are, the push mower. But as far as a decent mower, that's not that.
Even
bad.
a decent push mower is going to be over $500 right now. Lucas looked it up when we were kind of going through all this, and Pete froze. So I don't.
Well, and I'm back, and no, you froze.
Okay, great. Yeah.
So, Dave, you talked about the blades. Is there not something, the way the blades are set up? I mean, you wouldn't want to stick your foot under it anyway, but they're kind of set up so they're not dangerous to humans, and they'll stop and
yes, humans, pets. We had some tall weeds in the yard because this thing literally did our first mow of the season, which I figured is going to be the worst it's ever going to see, assuming it keeps up with it. And it did fine. But there were some tall weeds that are not grass, and it avoided those. And it was like, I was like, wait, why didn't it mow this area? And then I saw a pattern of like, okay, I need to pull up these weeds because it doesn't know if these weeds are weeds or flowers. Now, I mean, I suppose with pattern matching, eventually it probably could. Okay. But it's erring on the side of not destroying your gardens, right? And so I just went through and...
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is. And it has controls...
Don't cut down the tulips.
It has controls about how you manage the edges and, how aggressive you want it to get in that regard and all of those things. We will likely, if we stick with this for the season, we will likely buy... which we don't currently have, a trimmer to do some manual trimming once a month or so, just to kind of keep ahead of that on the edges of things. But otherwise, I mean, this thing, I'm impressed with it. And again, we are pushing it to its, I would like to push it beyond its limit, candidly. because I want it to actually mow my whole lawn and not just 90% of it. But
Yeah.
that's
the other
that's
thing that sounded kind of cool about this is that it does do mapping, because I had a friend, it's been 10 or 12 years ago. He got one of the first ones that ever came out, but he had to bury a wire around his yard, like an invisible fence type thing used to
wires
be.
or the stake in the ground with the things. No, there's none of that. The only thing I had to install was the base station, and once that was installed, it took over like a robot vacuum. And to me, that was the best part. Now, I'm very thankful that I get to do what I do, and I get to test these kinds of things as I do. But this thing is going to wind up being extremely expensive for me, because as I was watching it do even just its mapping for the first time, I knew that there was zero. This, again, does not really impact my quality of life. I am not the one that mows my lawn. So either way, it was it was handled, and it's been handled for a very long time. But what I do have to do, and I don't get, unlike mowing the lawn, I don't get to pick the schedule, is that after we have our driveway plowed, I have to go out with the snowblower and clean up the edges of the driveway, because if I don't, it'll freeze. And then over the season, we will wind up having a bike path for a driveway as it kind of creeps in and creeps in. So I have to snowblower and do the edge, kind of get the edges, do our path and all of that stuff. And there is unless we go broke, and I really don't have any plans nor hopes of that. Hang on, let me knock on wood. Great. I will absolutely be getting a robot snowblower for this coming winter, because the quality of life improvement of not worrying about that when it, when it just happens to snow is going to be huge. So
I've got one more question, and that's about the base station. Where'd you put it? Is it protected from weather?
Great question.
This thing rainproof, assuming it starts raining while it's out mowing?
I made the decision, which thankfully wasn't a terrible mistake, to let it do one of its first mowing passes on Sunday when we were out all day. It started raining and it poured. And because it was one of its first passes, it got stuck. And when it gets stuck, it stops and alerts you. And you go out and move it, and then it resumes once you tell it it's been moved. And then you can go in the map and kind of carve out that area, and decide what to do about it. But it got stuck and it was out in the rain for hours. It survives that just fine. It's not the best thing for it, but the base station is called the garage, and it's kind of a carport, if you will. It has a roof on it, so it protects it from the rain and the sun and I've seen it put itself away when the mower got too hot or whatever, because of the sun beating down on it. But I put it in kind of a conspicuous spot, but now I realize I'm going to move it. And there's a thing in the app where you can tell it, I'm moving the base station, please don't delete my map. And I'm going to move it to the north side of the house where I'll never see the base station. It's out of sight, out of mind, and it's right near a power outlet too, which is going to be great. So
that was my other question: is you got to run an extension cord or something to it? I'm assuming in most cases, because most people don't have. I mean, depending on your yard, I don't have outlets right next to the grass. There's pathways between the grass and the house.
and right now this will change. They have a kind of a roadmap that they've published of at least some of the features. Right now, the base station has to be in the yard area, but there is a feature coming where the base station can be essentially on one of those pathways that you teach it. And it can be anywhere, and then it will just kind of drive off and go mow your lawn. But yeah, it's freaking amazing. I've spent more time watching this thing just mow my lawn in amazement. It's super meditative to just watch, and it's quiet. My neighbor was mowing his lawn. Well, it's all electric, and obviously it's built to be energy efficient, so it's not making a lot of noise. And but my neighbor, far away, was mowing his lawn, and I was standing next to this thing, and his mower was far louder, drowning out any potential noise. This thing is almost, the thing you hear mostly is the motor for the wheels as it's kind of driving around because it's electric wheels, huge wheels on the thing too. Yeah.
Not to make this go on forever and ever, but I'm assuming with a robot mower, the general philosophy is you're having it mow more often and not trimming a lot of grass. So like it's maintaining the lawn rather than really mowing the lawn, right?
Yes, it is, other than the first time for me, which is why I was so eager to let it test it out. And our grass, I have it set to mow about at the 3-inch height, which is the highest that this will go, because that's best for us here in New Hampshire. And also, it's not going to get that much longer than it because it's going to be out there mowing fairly regularly. Yeah, but it was like there was some grass that was probably 7 inches, by the time it got to it, and it did fine. Yeah, well, it might have done multiple passes on that. Candidly, I don't care. Not only do I not know, it doesn't matter to me. Yep, but it looked good when it was finished. Yeah.
Yep. So final thing, and I'm going to agree with Kiwi Graham in the chat. Dave, think about the children. Think of how many summer job kids you are unemploying with this thing.
I'm one of them.
You monster.
I know. I like my first business that got me started down the whole crazy path that I've led my life on was mowing lawns. Absolutely. Yep. So, but like I said, I'm still going to need to manually go out and trim. So there is opportunity. Yep. And by
that's
opportunity, I mean,
wife.
well, that's actually fair. By opportunity, I mean that the kids could write the software for a mower to do the trimming for you. And actually, I think there are robotic trimmers. I think Yarbo just announced one, if I'm not mistaken on my memories. But yeah, it like that will come. So yeah, don't mow lawns. Learn how to write software. That's the learn how to vibe code, kids. That's the future.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you could charge people, because if you do what Matthew Dropko was talking about in the chat comments, there's a project at DEF CON where someone hacks your mower to go down the street and mow their lawn for free. So
well, if your lawn,
hey, I can mow your lawn.
If you and your neighbor have small enough lawns, you could buy one of these between the two of you.
Well, yeah. And I think you're referring to me. We actually live in what's now a duplex. And I think we're probably at about close to half an acre between the two of us. But
there you go. Yeah. So anyway.
Yeah, that only works if you're not in California where everybody has a fence.
Right. Yes. It will not it will not climb fences. You would need to build it a little doggy door. So yeah.
Blow through it.
Yep. Oh, you could teach it to go out on the road, and like you could teach it that path. I don't recommend having it drive on the road, but one could. And I am
that
certain,
could end badly.
I'm certain there are people out there that do. But yeah.
Hey, Dave, I hear musica.
Yeah, it was time. We went long on that last little bit there.
That was
but
a cool discussion, though.
Yeah, I kind of had a feeling we might. It's one of those things that this is like the robot vacuum, which also it was a game changing thing for me and all of us. Like it really makes a difference. And Adam, you were right to relate it to this thing is built to be a maintainer, not a once every 10 days I got to go out and mow the lawn kind of thing, like you and I might too, right? It's
exactly.
It's like it's happy to do it every day. And that's probably the right path. Certainly for me, I have to do it every day because I have too much lawn, right? So I have it chopped up and doing things. I actually have it set to do the same sections 2 days in a row, just in case it rains or something happens where it delays or defers it. And then it'll do the next 2 sections and the next 2 and the next 2. And so I've got 3 different groups, and it's just kind of doing them every day. I don't care.
Since it's not bagging it, that's a good thing. It's putting smaller amounts of that nitrogen back into the lawn.
Correct. And it's not loud, so I don't care if I'm out on my patio while my lawn's being mowed. It's fine. It makes me happy. I love it. In fact, I'd love to see the lawn being mowed while I'm out on my patio. Yeah, thanks for hanging out with us, folks. Thank you to CashFly for providing all the bandwidth to get the show from us to you. Thank you, everybody, for listening and sending in your tips and your questions. It means so much to us. It allows us to do what we do. So keep them coming. That no question, no tip is the wrong question or tip or cool stuff found. We love, love, love sharing it. And the best problem we have is we have too much stuff. So we gotta do this again next week, guys. In the meantime, you can listen to Pete's So There I Was. You can listen to Adam's debut film podcast, and you can listen to my Business Brain and Gig Gab podcast. Thanks for hanging out. Make sure to share the show with a friend, please. Please, please, please. We love it. Woohoo. That's it. We did it. Almost.
Yeah.
We have seconds away. We have actually 20 seconds. Really? Yeah, guess so. We got to wait it out.
You know why I'm here this week, Dave?
Why are you here this week, Pete?
Well, because I didn't want to get. In fact, I'll pass the same advice on. There's a storm coming. Don't get caught.
It's true.
Made on a Mac.
See ya.
Later.